Question. Is it literally possible, like possible, to feed two people with one egg? And yes, of course, you do hear the bird clock. No, it's not your imagination. Back in a minute. Hi, good morning, good afternoon. This is Jan. Welcome to another episode on the Save Money and More with Jan channel. How you doing today? Yes, it is absolutely possible with one egg to share with two people. I'm telling you, there are a number of ways to do it. Let's get started. And let me get my trusty notebook because I didn't want to miss a beat. All right, so this is what I personally do when eggs are running low and I want to stretch it all the way to the time of my next grocery haul. What I'll do is I'll take one egg, okay? But what I do is, okay, put nonstick spray in my little small skillet with the one egg already beaten. You can add a drop of milk if you want, but it's really not necessary to do that. Season it up the way you like your, batter, your egg batter. Put it into your already warmed up skillet for the one egg. Do nothing to it. Just let it form a beautiful round omelet. Okay. In the meantime, this is the time when you get really creative because what are we really craving when we have our eggs? We're craving basically protein. So if you can find another protein, like maybe cut it up and have it readily available, would be very helpful. For example, like cut up let's say slice up one piece of spam. And by the way, just for the record, spam freezes really well. So if you open up a can, you don't want to use the whole can at one time. You don't want it to get sour in the fridge. What you do is this is really, really great. Wrap it up airtight, wrap it up in good wrapping like I did with my aluminum foil. And I put that inside of a baggie and I put that inside of the freezer. And I use it as I need it. You can cut up the slices in advance if you want, so you don't have to worry. Just take your little slices. So what I did was I took a slice of my already saved spam. I cut it up and I put it on the side, right? And then I heated that through. And then I added it to that omelet. Let me tell you something. So two people had the one omelet. You could take something else. You could, if you don't care for meat or whatever, you could cut up some, sauce, not sausage, excuse me, some peppers with onion if you like, or you could cut up some already cooked leftover potatoes. This is why every little bit of leftovers can be a do-over. Do not toss out. Work with it. If it's within the same week, work with it. If you have room in your freezer, make room in the freezer and freeze those little scraps. You'd be shocked and amazed. That's one way to stretch an egg. All right. There's another way to stretch an egg. A box cake mix many times asks for 3 eggs. You don't need 3. 2 works just as well. I've had 0 problem with that. Don't always have to go according to the box cake mixes, okay? That's another thing. Use eggs less often as a recipe ingredient and use it more often as the main meal. And that really, really stretches an egg. You can use, for example, applesauce to compensate for an egg in a box cake mix or other, homemade cake mixes. All right. But the one egg omelet, I'm telling you, also, you don't have to make an omelet. You can make a whole bunch of French toast using the one egg and added, milk or whatever else that you like to use to make your French toast batter, only using one egg. Egg prices, egg prices go up, they go down, they go up. They're like a yo-yo. Okay. So isn't it good to have some ideas for whenever you feel like stretching eggs? Because, I'm telling you, it's just an incredible thing. But 1 cup, for example, 1 cup or half a cup of cut up cooked potatoes, or you can even keep those canned potatoes available. They work great. Just drain them out, just throw them in, and it stretches it over. I'm telling you. Like I said, I don't add so many eggs to my recipes. Use it more instead of as a hidden ingredient. Use it more as the main thing. All right. Let me see. Yes, if you run out of, some people love to have breakfast sausage with their breakfast on a weekend, for example. But sometimes you thought you had it, or it's just not available, or you just didn't buy it, whatever. Don't forget about the dinner meats again. You may have leftover chicken. You could heat that up and, spice it up, season it up, put it on the side with your eggs for breakfast. I'm just saying. So never forget that you have other resources to check into. And this is a good rule of thumb in general with recipes and with cooking. Always find a way to, like swap out, swap out, swap out. That's an amazing, amazing thing to do. Also, if you cook your ground beef in advance, right? Make a bunch of it, freeze it up, right? You always have it ready. The ground beef crumble. Some people pay more money just for cooked up ground beef crumbles. You could do it yourself. Do it yourself. Get, whenever you get your beef on sale, just do it yourself. Put it away. And those crumbles make such an amazing addition to any recipe, including breakfast recipe. So we oftentimes think of it with dinner, but who's to stop us from using it as a breakfast ingredient? So never forget that. Here's another thing that I like to do every time I get a loaf of bread. And this may sound crazy, but it's not crazy. Every single time I get a loaf of bread, what I like to do, I open up the bread, the sliced bread. I take out 2 or 3 slices, right? Take it out. And what I already have had an existing empty a loaf of bread wrapper, like the exact, like, don't throw away those bags the bread comes in for too many reasons. Don't throw away. That's another show. I mean, I can mention why in a minute, but keep one of those already existing bags that you held on to from previous loaves of bread. Put 2 or 3 slices away every time you open up a brand new fresh loaf of bread. Do that. You probably say, well, why do that? And freeze it. Well, that way you always have that little gap in between. How many times, let's say somebody comes back home from work late, okay, and you just ran out of bread, if you will, and that person's looking to make a sandwich and it's 9, 10 o'clock at night. They don't feel like going out just to buy a loaf of bread. But then the light bulb goes off in your head. Wait a minute. I have a few slices hiding in the freezer. Bread, sliced bread especially, freezes really, really well. So you could be building up your little homemade, without cooking it, like your homemade loaf of bread. Imagine that, a homemade loaf of bread that you didn't cook, but because you were smart enough to save it at the very, very beginning. Now, some people, for whatever the reason, and I'm not quite sure the reason, some people do not like, as they call, the heel of the bread, the ends of the bread. I like them. I'm sorry. I think they make great toast. That's one of the ones that always comes out. The first couple, 3 slices comes out, and I put it away, put it away, put it away. And at the end of the month, you may end up with like a loaf or two of bread in your own freezer. It's a good backup, especially now that the chilly weather is coming, and it makes right away great toast, great French toast. You can use it for breadcrumbs. There are so many reasons to save just a couple of slices of bread each time you open up a new loaf. Now, I know this all sounds silly, but you're going to see that in the future, it really just adds up. Now, let's talk about soup for a minute. Talk about homemade soup. All right. All right. Homemade soup. Homemade soup, obviously, is a blank canvas. You work with the stuff you have. You work with the stuff you like to eat. Okay. This is why it is so important to keep, for example, let's say dried lentils, split peas. They're so inexpensive. If you like it, obviously, if you like it. I mean, it's so fast to make those kinds of soup, those bean soups, whatever. But if you happen to be making, let's say, a chicken soup, most recipes call for 4 cups of soup. Well, I mean, cups of water. To me, that's a measly amount. That's a measly amount. I rather get an additional 2 cups out of it. And if you play your cards right and add 2 more cups of water, but here's the trick, you're going to stretch your soup for more people or for an additional serving for yourself if you're that hungry, right? Couple more cups of water, right? Eyeball it. But every time you add the 2 cups, be sure to add some bouillon or some salt. If you don't have bouillon cube or some salt to keep the flavor going, okay? And you could just throw in some extra throw-ins and you just really stretch the soup. Enough so that you could freeze up a bunch for those days when you're tired, don't feel good, you're not in the mood to slice and dice, and you see where I'm going with this. There are ways and there are ways. Let me get back to the bread bags for a minute, okay? Not just only saving those bread bags when you're done with them for preparing to save some slices for the freezer, but hold on to them for like some sloppy garbage. Like when you have some sloppy garbage, it's a great place to like put them, throw it in the freezer, and then when it's time, you get rid of it, or right away get rid of it. There's something to be said about those little plastic bags. They come in handy, or whenever you want to make breadcrumbs or cookie crumbs for future pie crust. Everything I mentioned doesn't cost you a dime. You have everything. You're just either adding to or you're just using a different method. These are fun ways to stretch your grocery budget. All right, everybody. I hope I helped at least one person today. And by the way, if you don't mind, do the following. Take good care of yourself and your wonderful family.